They say a man with no girlfriend is missing something. They say he's incomplete, like his value is measured by who's holding his hand or who's calling his name at night. But let me tell you something real. Being single don't make you less of a man. What makes you less is forgetting who you are when the room gets quiet. See, too many men out here chasing validation, chasing somebody just so they don't feel alone, chasing images they see on screens that ain't even real. But the truth is, this season of being without, that's your time. That's your space to build, to grind, to grow into somebody solid. Because the man who can stand tall by himself, the man who can look in the mirror and know his worth without anybody else confirming it, that man is dangerous. That man is unshakable. A girlfriend doesn't define your value. Respect, discipline, and vision do. So don't get it twisted. Don't let society rush you into weakness. This is your moment to lock in, to build your foundation, to embrace solitude, and to step into the kind of power no relationship can ever give you. When you talk about a man with no girlfriend, the first thing society wants to do is question his value. Like his worth is measured by whether somebody is standing next to him, holding his hand, taking pictures with him, or calling him hers. But see, that's a trap. That's the kind of thinking that makes a man forget who he is when the room gets quiet and nobody's around. A real man can't be defined by who validates him. His definition has to come from the mirror, from the grind, from the vision that wakes him up every morning. If you're chasing validation, you're already in debt because you're depending on somebody else to write your story. But if you're locked in on your own self-worth, you move different, you stand taller, and you understand that your existence got value whether anybody claps for it or not. The danger in seeking validation through relationships is you start living for applause instead of purpose. A man can get so wrapped up in trying to look complete that he forgets he already is. You start scrolling, seeing couples posted up on vacations, buying matching outfits, doing things for the camera, and you think that's the standard. But you don't know what's behind those images. You don't know if that's love or a mask, connection or convenience. That's why comparing yourself to that is dangerous, because it plants seeds of doubt inside you, makes you feel like something's wrong with your journey. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with being alone if you're using that time to build. What's wrong is forgetting your value and chasing someone else just to fill a hole that only your own growth can fill. A man with no girlfriend doesn't mean a man with no love. Love can live inside your circle, inside your family, inside your friendships, inside your craft. But if you start to believe that your worth is defined only by romantic attachment, you shrink yourself to a half version. You start accepting less just so you can say you have something. You let people treat you in ways that don't line up with your standards because you think being chosen is the victory, when really the victory is choosing yourself first. Self-worth is that foundation you stand on when everything else falls away. It's that unshakable belief that no matter who comes or goes, you remain valuable, you remain solid, you remain whole. It's important to recognize the difference between wanting a relationship and needing one for validation. When you want it, it's a choice. It's an extension of your growth. It's something that enhances what you already are. But when you need it, it's a weakness. It means you've put your sense of identity in somebody else's hands, and when they leave, they take pieces of you with them. That's why so many men spiral when relationships end, because they never built themselves up first. They thought their partner was the foundation, when in reality, they were supposed to be the addition to the home you already built. If you haven't poured concrete on your own vision, any relationship you stand on is going to collapse eventually. A man's value doesn't come from being desired. It comes from being disciplined. It comes from setting goals, creating standards, walking in integrity, and knowing your purpose even when nobody is cheering. The loudest applause you will ever hear is the silence of discipline. The sound of you working when nobody's looking. The sound of you saying no to what doesn't align. The sound of you respecting yourself enough to wait for what's real, that self-worth. And when you carry that, people see it. They feel it. They're drawn to it. That's the irony of it all. When you stop chasing validation, validation chases you. When you look at men who stand tall, who command respect, it's not because of who's on their arm. It's because they know themselves. They built a standard. They wrote their own definition. They decided with or without a partner, they would be solid. That's what makes a man powerful. You don't earn that through likes, through comments, through somebody else's approval. You earn that by looking at yourself in the mirror and refusing to let the world dictate your value. The world will tell you you're not enough unless you got certain things, but the truth is you're already enough. The only question is whether you see it, whether you live like it, whether you hold yourself to that standard every day. Self-worth over validation is about freedom. Freedom from comparison, freedom from insecurity, freedom from the hunger for someone else's recognition. When you embrace that freedom, your energy changes. You stop being desperate. You stop settling. You stop performing for acceptance. Instead, you start building. You start creating. You start walking in confidence that doesn't need confirmation. That's when relationships that do come into your life are pure, because they're not built on filling emptiness. They're built on adding to fullness. That's the difference between a man who knows himself and a man who's still searching for himself through others. So when you talk about a man with no girlfriend, don't talk about him like he's missing something. Talk about him like he's in the lab, like he's in training, like he's in the middle of building something greater than a title or a post on a feed. Because the truth is, when you own your self-worth, you don't wait for someone else to complete your story. You already are the story. Man with no girlfriend has two choices. He can either waste his energy worrying about what he doesn't have, or he can put that same energy into building what he needs for his future. When you don't got somebody around you for comfort, that's not a curse. That's a gift. That's time. That's freedom. That's space to lock in, to grind, to chase your vision with no distractions. Too many men lose themselves chasing validation from relationships when they should be chasing their purpose, their money, their growth. Because at the end of the day, a relationship without stability, without foundation, without a vision, is just a distraction dressed up like love. And distractions will rob you of years you could have spent stacking, learning, and building yourself up. The grind is more than working hard. It's aligning your daily moves with your bigger picture. It's the discipline to wake up early, sacrifice comfort, and stay consistent when nobody's watching. A man who has no girlfriend but has focus is 10 times more powerful than a man who has somebody but no direction. Because relationships demand energy, time, and attention. And if you don't already know who you are and where you're going, you'll get pulled into somebody else's orbit, living by their priorities instead of your own. That's why this season of being without a partner is sacred. It's the chance to sharpen your tools, to build your hustle, to chase excellence without apology. The grind gives you identity. It gives you confidence. When you put in the work, when you're chasing goals, you don't need someone else to remind you you're valuable. You see it in the results. You feel it in the progress. That's why focusing on the grind is deeper than just chasing money. It's about becoming the best version of yourself in every area. Because when you put in that work, you stop living like a beggar waiting for someone to validate you, and you start living like a creator, shaping your own destiny. And the truth is, when you build yourself up like that, the right people will come into your life naturally, because they'll be drawn to your energy, your ambition, and your movement. The mistake so many men make is giving priority to relationships before they've built their own foundation. They think having somebody by their side will fill the holes in their life, but the holes don't disappear. They just get covered up for a while. Eventually they show again, and now you've dragged somebody else into the instability you never fixed. The grind is what patches those holes. It's what makes you whole. It's the way you transform from just existing to truly living with intention. You can't fake it, you can't shortcut it, and you definitely can't outsource it to a relationship. A focus on the grind also teaches patience. It keeps you from chasing things that look good in the moment but cost you in the long run. Every hour you spend working on your vision is a seed planted. It might not grow overnight, but eventually it turns into something undeniable. That's what separates men who build legacy from men who chase temporary highs. A girlfriend can leave you, validation can fade, but your grind, your work ethic, your progress, those stay with you forever. That's something nobody can take. People will question why you're single. They'll try to measure you by what they can see on the outside, but they don't understand the man who chooses to grind instead of chase. They don't understand the discipline of turning down temporary comfort to build something lasting. They don't see the nights you sacrifice sleep to learn a skill, the weekends you sacrifice fun to stack money, the relationships you sacrifice to protect your focus. They won't get it until the results show, and when they do, the same people who question you will start asking how you did it. That's the power of choosing grind over validation. When you're locked in on your grind, you carry yourself different. You walk into rooms with a sense of purpose. You talk with clarity because you know where you're headed. You don't beg for attention because your work speaks louder than your words. That energy is magnetic. It attracts respect, it attracts opportunity, and it attracts the type of people who match your drive. That's why focusing on the grind is not about rejecting relationships. It's about making sure you're the kind of man who brings value to any relationship you do enter, because a man who hasn't built himself has nothing real to offer. But a man who's been grinding, who's invested in himself, who's built discipline, can pour into others without losing himself in the process. The grind also protects you from desperation. When you're chasing goals, you don't settle for anything less than alignment because your time is too valuable. You're too locked in to be distracted by someone who doesn't match your vision. That's what makes you powerful. You stop moving out of fear of being alone and start moving out of love for what you're building. And when you operate like that, the world can't deny you. Opportunities find you. The right people find you. Respect finds you. But all of it starts with the grind. When a man is without a girlfriend, the temptation is to rush, to fill that empty space with something, anything, just so he doesn't feel the silence. But silence is where the real growth happens. Patience is the part of the journey most people skip over because it doesn't feel good. It feels like you're stuck, like life is passing you by, like everybody else is moving faster than you. But patience isn't about standing still. It's about aligning yourself with timing, understanding that not everything is supposed to happen on your schedule. There's a rhythm to life, and if you try to move against it, you'll end up frustrated, settling for less, or carrying weight that was never meant for you. Patience builds strength that rushing never will. When you're patient, you learn discipline. You learn how to control your emotions instead of letting your emotions control you. You learn how to wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing at the first one that shows up. That applies to money, to business, to relationships, to everything. A man who knows how to wait has power because he doesn't get desperate. He doesn't jump at attention just because it's available. He values himself enough to know that what is meant for him will find him when he's ready. Timing matters because something good at the wrong time can end up bad, and something bad at the right time can look good enough to fool you. That's why patience is key. It keeps you from being tricked by the moment. Think about how many people rush into relationships because they're tired of being single. They end up forcing connections that don't match, and then they wonder why it falls apart later. The problem wasn't that love doesn't exist. The problem was timing. They weren't ready, or the other person wasn't ready, but they tried to make it work anyway, and instead of building together, they end up breaking each other down. That's what happens when you confuse loneliness with readiness. Patience teaches you that being alone doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're preparing. It means you're sharpening your skills, building your focus, stacking your resources, and becoming the type of man who can actually handle what he's asking for. Timing is everything, and when you move with patience, you respect the timing of your own journey. Just because somebody else found love at 21 doesn't mean you're late at 28. Just because somebody else is posting their relationship every week doesn't mean you're supposed to have the same thing right now. Their timing isn't your timing, and your timing isn't theirs. When you compare yourself, you get anxious. When you trust your timing, you get peace. Peace is what allows you to keep building without second guessing yourself. And when the right person does come into your life, you'll be able to recognize it because you'll be grounded, not desperate. Patience also protects you from temporary illusions. You'll see opportunities that look perfect but aren't built to last. Without patience, you'll grab them and waste time you can't get back. With patience, you can pause, analyze, and ask yourself if this lines up with your purpose, with your vision, with your long-term goals. Timing has a way of revealing truth. What looks good today may not look the same tomorrow. What feels urgent right now may prove meaningless a year from now. That's why a man who can wait is dangerous. He can't be manipulated by the moment. He moves with strategy, not emotion. A man with no girlfriend who understands patience doesn't look at his singleness as a weakness. He sees it as training. He knows the right connection will come when it's supposed to, and when it does, he'll be ready to receive it. He won't need to beg for it, won't need to compromise his standards for it, won't need to chase it. It'll flow naturally because he's been preparing for it. Timing has a way of making things effortless when they're right. You don't have to force it. You don't have to manipulate it. You don't have to overthink it. It just aligns because you're in the right place with the right mindset at the right moment. Patience and timing also apply to building yourself outside of relationships. If you plant a seed today, you don't get a tree tomorrow. You water it, you protect it, you give it time to grow. That's the same with your grind, your purpose, your goals. A man who doesn't understand patience will quit too early. He'll give up right before the breakthrough because it didn't happen fast enough. But a man who respects timing understands that delays are not denials. They're part of the process, shaping him into the person who can handle the blessing when it comes. Without patience, blessings can feel like burdens. With patience, blessings feel like confirmation. The truth is, patience separates the real from the fake. Anybody can want something. Anybody can start chasing a dream or a relationship, but not everybody can wait for it to mature, to develop, to become solid. That's why timing is such a teacher. It exposes who's serious and who's just excited. Excitement fades, but patience endures. Excitement wants instant results, but patience is willing to build for years if that's what it takes. When you embrace patience and respect timing, you start moving differently. You don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you flow. You don't complain about what you don't have, you prepare for what's coming. That's the mindset of a man who knows his value. He trusts that what's meant for him will come, not when he demands it, but when he's ready for it. That's why patience and timing are everything. A man with no girlfriend should never feel like he's behind. What he should feel is hungry to build himself first, because before you invite anyone into your world, you got to make sure that world has a foundation. Too many men want companionship without construction. They want somebody to stand beside them before they've even stood up on their own 2 feet. But the truth is, if you don't build yourself, you're going to end up leaning on somebody else for balance, and that's how you create relationships that drain instead of elevate. Building yourself first is about making sure you know who you are, where you're going, and what you stand for before you bring somebody else into the picture. When you focus on building yourself, you're investing in your mind, your body, and your spirit. Your mind needs sharpening through knowledge, through discipline, through constantly learning and expanding. Your body needs care because health is wealth and strength is confidence. Your spirit needs grounding because without a deeper sense of purpose, you'll drift in whatever direction life pushes you. A man who hasn't built himself in those areas is unstable, and instability in a man spills into everything: his work, his relationships, his decisions. That's why the single season is sacred. It's not a punishment, it's preparation. It's a time when you can fully invest in yourself without distraction. A man who builds himself first never walks into a relationship empty-headed. He brings value with him. He brings vision, discipline, stability, and leadership. That doesn't mean he has to be perfect or finished. Nobody ever is. But it means he's actively working on himself so he doesn't show up expecting somebody else to fix him. Too many people enter relationships looking for healing, looking for completion, looking for purpose in another person. That's not love, that's dependency. And dependency creates pressure, because now you're expecting another person to carry a weight they were never meant to carry. Building yourself first means you take ownership of your growth. And when you finally connect with someone, it's not about needing them to complete you. It's about choosing them to complement you. Part of building yourself first is also about finances and stability. Love might be free, but life is not. If you can't take care of yourself, if you can't manage your money, if you can't stay consistent in your work, you're not in position to build something solid with somebody else. That doesn't mean you need to be rich before you deserve love, but it does mean you should have discipline, vision, and a plan. Because if your life is chaos, that chaos spills over into any relationship you're in. But when you've built yourself up financially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you create a safe space that makes growth together possible. Building yourself first is also about self-respect. When you know your value, when you've put in the work on yourself, you stop settling for people or situations that don't align with your standards. You're not desperate for attention because your confidence doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from knowing what you've built within. That's what makes a man dangerous in the best way. He doesn't need anybody to tell him he's enough because his life already proves it. His consistency, his discipline, his progress all speak for him. And that kind of energy attracts the right people naturally without having to force anything. A man who has built himself will always be searching for meaning, searching for validation, searching for somebody else to fill the holes. But a man who's building himself is creating. He's creating his future, creating his peace, creating his legacy. And creation is magnetic. It pulls the right connections into your life at the right time. That's why building yourself first is not just about relationships. It's about life, because the way you show up for yourself will always determine the way you show up for others. There's also a responsibility factor. When you bring someone into your life, you're inviting them into your reality. If that reality is unstable, you're not only risking your peace, you're risking theirs too. That's why it's selfish to enter into something serious before you've done the work on yourself. Love should be a partnership, not a project. Building yourself first ensures that when you step into something real, you're stepping in as a partner, not a burden. That doesn't mean you won't still have flaws or struggles, but it does mean you're carrying your own weight instead of asking someone else to carry it for you. Building yourself first also creates longevity. Relationships built on attraction alone fade when challenges come. Relationships built on dependency collapse when the pressure gets heavy. But when you've built yourself first, you bring resilience. You bring the ability to weather storms, to adapt, to stand tall even when things get tough. That kind of strength makes relationships stronger because instead of falling apart when life hits, you become the steady anchor that holds everything together. So when a man has no girlfriend, he shouldn't be ashamed. He should see it as his season to build, to pour into his goals, to sharpen his mind, to take care of his body, to align with his purpose and to create stability. Because when you build yourself first, you're not just preparing for a relationship, you're preparing for life. A man with no girlfriend doesn't lose his identity. He doesn't lose his masculinity. He doesn't lose his power. But the world will try to convince him that he's lacking something, that he's incomplete because he's not paired up, that his value is measured by whether somebody calls him theirs. That's where respect and realness come in. Respect starts with how you see yourself, and realness starts with how you live. A man who respects himself doesn't let outside voices define him. A man who's real doesn't pretend to be something he's not just to fit into what society says he should be. Respect is the foundation of every decision. If you respect yourself, you're not going to lower your standards just to say you have someone. You're not going to tolerate disrespect from people just because you don't want to be alone. Respect means you hold yourself to a code, a standard that doesn't break, even when you're tempted. And when you live like that, you move different. You don't move desperate. You don't move thirsty. You move like somebody who knows his worth, even if nobody else is saying it out loud. Realness is being authentic about where you are in life. If you're single, be single. Don't fake a persona. Don't front for the world. Don't act like you live in a reality that doesn't exist. Realness is being able to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm at, and I'm good with it because I'm working on me. Too many men lose themselves in pretending, showing off relationships that aren't solid, chasing approval from others, trying to fit into an image, but images fade. The pretend always catches up to you. What doesn't fade is authenticity. When you're real, people trust you, people respect you, people feel your energy because they know you're not faking anything. Respect and realness go hand in hand. You can't be respected if you're not real, and you can't be real if you don't respect yourself. When you respect yourself, you don't compromise your values. You don't play games with people's emotions. You don't waste time in situations that don't align with your purpose. When you're real, you're honest about what you want, what you're capable of, and what season you're in. Together, they make you solid. Solid men are rare, and that's why they stand out. They're not chasing clout. They're not chasing validation. They're not pretending to be happy just for likes. They're rooted in something deeper. And that's what makes people look at them with admiration, even if they don't say it out loud. A man without a girlfriend who lives with respect and realness doesn't see his singleness as shame. He sees it as alignment. He knows that waiting for the right one is better than rushing into the wrong one. He respects his time too much to waste it, and he respects himself too much to fake it. That's strength. That's maturity. That's the kind of mindset that builds legacy, because you're not living for approval in the moment. You're living for the bigger picture. Respect also means respecting others. Just because you're single doesn't mean you disrespect women or speak down on relationships or act bitter about what you don't have. Real respect is understanding that everyone's journey is different and yours is yours. You don't need to tear down someone else's situation to feel good about your own. You can appreciate love without rushing to force it in your life. That's what makes you balanced. You respect yourself, you respect others, and you respect the timing of your path. When you're real, people feel safe around you because they know you're not putting on a mask. They know your words are genuine, your actions are consistent, your energy is steady, and that kind of authenticity is rare in a world full of performers. Most people are chasing a highlight reel, trying to convince others they're happier than they are. But when you walk in realness, you don't need to perform. You don't need to prove, you just are. And people who see that will always give you respect because they know how rare it is to meet someone who's unapologetically themselves. Realness also means embracing your flaws. You don't have to be perfect to be respected. You just have to be honest. If you're still growing, admit it. If you're still learning, own it. Respect grows from honesty, not from acting like you've already arrived. Nobody respects a man who pretends, but everybody respects a man who's transparent about his struggles while still working to overcome them. That kind of honesty inspires people because it shows strength and vulnerability. A man with no girlfriend, but with respect and realness, is never truly alone, because even without a partner, he carries dignity, and dignity attracts the right energy. People want to connect with someone who's authentic, someone who's grounded, someone who's not swayed by every opinion. And when the time comes for him to step into a relationship, it'll be real, because he built it from a place of honesty and self-respect, not from desperation or fear of being alone. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude, and most men don't take the time to learn it. Loneliness is a weight. It's that feeling of emptiness, like something's missing, like no matter what you do, there's a hole you can't fill. It makes you restless, it makes you anxious, it makes you chase after anything that looks like connection, even if it's not healthy, even if it's temporary. Loneliness pushes men into relationships they're not ready for, into circles that don't serve them, into habits that numb the pain but never fix the problem. That's why loneliness is dangerous. It's reactive. It makes you move out of fear instead of strength. Solitude, on the other hand, is powerful. Solitude is not the absence of people, it's the presence of yourself. It's the time you take to hear your own thoughts, to face your own weaknesses, to sharpen your own vision. It's the space where you learn who you are when nobody's watching, when nobody's calling, when nobody's clapping. Solitude doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you, because it forces you to build a relationship with yourself. And a man who has a relationship with himself doesn't get lost when he steps into relationships with others. And the difference between loneliness and solitude is perspective. Loneliness says, I'm missing something. Solitude says, I'm creating something. Loneliness makes you focus on what you don't have. Solitude makes you focus on what you're building. One drains you, the other develops you. A man with no girlfriend might feel lonely if he sees himself as incomplete without somebody by his side. But if he shifts that perspective, that same space can become solitude, a season where he levels up, a season where he prepares, a season where he grows into the man he's supposed to be. Most people run from solitude because they're afraid of silence. Silence makes them confront the truth. It makes them hear the doubts they've been ignoring, the pain they've been covering, the insecurities they've been hiding. That's why they stay busy, stay distracted, stay chasing noise, because they don't want to deal with themselves. But if you want to grow, if you want to be strong, if you want to be unshakable, you have to spend time in solitude. You have to face yourself, because the parts of you that go unaddressed will always show up later. Loneliness is rooted in lack. It's rooted in the idea that your value comes from somebody else's presence. Solitude is rooted in abundance. It's rooted in the idea that your value comes from within, and when you take time to cultivate that, you'll never be empty. Solitude doesn't mean you don't want connection. It means you're not dependent on it. You can appreciate love, you can welcome companionship, but you're not defined by it. You're defined by the strength you've built within yourself during the quiet times, during the seasons when it was just you and your grind. A man who knows solitude carries himself differently. He's not desperate. He's not begging for attention. He's not trying to fill a hole with temporary fixes. He's patient. He's disciplined. He's comfortable in his own skin. That kind of man doesn't chase relationships. He attracts them, because people can feel that confidence, that stability, that peace. And peace is magnetic in a world where most people are drowning in noise. Learning the difference between loneliness and solitude is also about how you use your time. If you're lonely, you waste time scrolling, comparing yourself, numbing yourself with distractions. If you're in solitude, you use that time to building your body in the gym, building your mind with books, building your future with plans, building your craft with discipline. Loneliness is passive, solitude is active. Loneliness waits, solitude creates. That's why solitude is the weapon. It's the place where you gain the strength that others can't see until the results show. There's also a spiritual side to solitude. It's in solitude that you connect with your higher purpose, with the deeper reason you're here. Without solitude, you're just moving through life on autopilot, chasing moments, chasing people, chasing things that don't satisfy. But solitude grounds you. It forces you to slow down, to listen, to realign with what matters. And when you're aligned, you stop needing external things to validate you. You walk with clarity, you walk with intention, you walk with peace. A man who mistakes loneliness for solitude can end up bitter, angry, resentful. He thinks life is unfair, thinks he's missing out, thinks he's less than others. But a man who understands solitude becomes disciplined, focused, powerful. He uses the same silence to grow instead of complain. That's a choice every man without a girlfriend has to make. Will you sit in loneliness and feel empty, or will you embrace solitude and fill yourself with strength? The truth is, solitude is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's the space before the blessing, the training before the opportunity, the foundation before the building. If you embrace it, it shapes you into someone who can handle the weight of what's coming. If you reject it, you'll keep running into the same cycles of emptiness, trying to fix loneliness with quick solutions that never last. That's why learning to love solitude is one of the greatest lessons a man can master. So when they talk about a man with no girlfriend, don't let them talk like he's missing something, because what he's really got is time, freedom, and the chance to build himself into something solid. Self-worth over validation, focus on the grind, patience with timing, building yourself first, moving with respect and realness, and learning the strength of solitude. Those are the cornerstones. That's the blueprint. A girlfriend can come and go, validation can fade, but the work you put in on yourself, the respect you carry, the discipline you live by, that lasts forever. You're not defined by who stands beside you. You're defined by how you stand when it's just you in the mirror. And when you do it right, when you lock in on your purpose, when you choose growth over desperation, when you live by respect and move in authenticity, you'll never be empty, because you'll understand that completeness doesn't come from somebody else. It comes from within. And when the right person does step into your life, they won't be completing you. They'll be complementing the man you already became. That's the truth. That's the marathon. That's the victory.